Elena stepped out of the car, her heart pounding in her chest as she adjusted the strap of her elegant black dress. The charity gala was taking place at a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city, a place where opulence met power, and even the air felt heavy with expectation. She glanced up at the grand entrance, where guests in designer attire glided past her, laughter and clinking glasses a stark contrast to the quiet life she had built for herself. This was not her world. She was a simple waitress, a woman who thrived on hard work and independence, not the wealth that surrounded her now. Before she could second-guess herself, Elena took a deep breath and walked toward the entrance. She had been invited by a colleague who insisted that her presence would be a good opportunity for networking, an idea that made her skin crawl. Despite her reservations, she wore a smile as she stepped into the extravagant hall, where chandeliers illuminated faces adorned with expensive jewels. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. Elena maneuvered through the crowd, her eyes scanning the room. She could feel the weight of their stares, not all of them friendly. She was painfully aware of how out of place she looked, and doubts crept into her mind. She reminded herself that she deserved to be there, that against all odds, she had earned this invitation. Amidst the chatter, she caught sight of a man standing apart from the crowd, a commanding presence cloaked in an aura of danger and allure. Victor, the Bratva boss, was unmistakably magnetic, his sharp suit clinging to his powerful frame. His dark hair framed a face that bore the marks of a man with experience, strength, intimidation, and an unsettling charm that drew eyes from every corner of the room. She had heard whispers about him, the man who ruled the underworld with an iron fist. He was captivating, yet something deep inside her screamed to steer clear. She watched as he interacted with others, a smile playing on his lips that didn't quite reach his eyes. There was power in his demeanor, a confidence that seemed to demand respect and fear in equal measure. Just as she turned away to grab a drink, she rammed straight into him, her glass nearly slipping from her fingers. "Watch where you're going," Victor said, his voice low and authoritative, laced with a thickness that sent shivers down her spine. The moment felt suspended in time as she looked up, meeting his gaze, a stormy sea of darkness that seemed to pierce her soul. "Sorry, she fumbled her words, feeling the heat rise to her cheeks. It wasn't just panic that surged through her, it was an undeniable pull, a magnetic force that made her heart race wildly. She straightened her posture, unwilling to let him see her unease. "You don't belong here," he said, the disdain evident in his tone. It was as if he was dismissing not just her current presence in that room, but the whole of her existence. A wave of anger washed over her, combating the fear that threatened to hold her hostage. "Neither do you, Victor," Elena blurted back, surprising herself with her audacity. The moment his eyes widened a fraction, she felt a jolt of satisfaction. She didn't need to cower in front of him or any man for that matter. He studied her for a moment, the hint of a smirk curling at the corners of his mouth, as if intrigued by her spirit. "You're bold," he said, his voice smooth and dangerously inviting. "But boldness has its price." Elena felt a ripple of unease at his words. They hung in the air, heavy with implication, and she fought to maintain her composure. "I work hard for my place. I'm not intimidated by your money or your title," she replied, her resolve firm. "I'm not looking to belong to any world but my own." Victor's expression shifted, a flicker of interest lighting up his eyes. "Is that so?" he said, his tone suddenly lighter, almost playful. "Then perhaps I should introduce you to the realities of this world. It's not as glamorous as it appears." As he moved closer, the intoxicating scent of his cologne enveloped her, drawing her deeper into his vortex. She was aware that this was not just an encounter, it was a collision of two worlds. The contrast between her modest life and his luxurious one loomed large between them, a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. Yet there was something about him that beckoned her, an allure she couldn't quite place. "I think I've seen enough," Elena replied, her voice steady despite the tremors of uncertainty within her. She took a step back, distancing herself from the gravity of the moment. "Good evening, Victor." But as she turned to leave, she felt a hand grip her wrist gently yet firmly, pulling her back toward him. "Stay," he commanded, a hint of urgency threading through his voice. "This isn't just about the gala, Elena. There are forces at play here that you may not understand yet." His eyes locked onto hers, and for a fleeting moment, she found herself lost in that gaze, the intensity almost swallowing her whole. The evening was still young, the tension in the air palpable. There was an unspoken promise lingering between them, a threat that teased at the edges of her reality and entangled her in a web of intrigue she never asked for. But she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, a mere prologue to a tale filled with danger and desire. In a world where she felt increasingly out of her depth, Elena had unwittingly stepped into the path of a storm. She could sense the ominous clouds gathering on the horizon, yet she was more drawn to the tempest than repelled by it. As she stood under the opulent chandeliers, she couldn't help but wonder where this fateful encounter with Victor would lead her, and what it would mean for her ordinary life. She made her decision then: she would not turn away from the unfolding mystery, even if it threatened to consume her in ways she couldn't yet understand. Elena felt the intensity of Victor's gaze linger on her as she stood there, defiant and unyielding. The crowded gala faded into the background, and all she could focus on was the man in front of her, the Mafia boss whose reputation sent chills down the spines of even the toughest men in the room. She had never been one to back down from a challenge, and there was something about his authoritative presence that ignited a fire within her, a desire to stand her ground, regardless of the odds. "You think you can just walk in here and," he began, but she cut him off, her voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. "I didn't ask for your permission to be here, Victor. This is a charity event, and I'm here for a reason, just like everyone else." Her words hung in the air, challenging him. She could see the flicker of surprise in his eyes, a fleeting moment where he appeared momentarily disarmed by her confidence. "Your reason?" He leaned in closer, the scent of his cologne intoxicating. "I doubt it's as noble as you claim. People like you don't belong in places like this." His tone was laced with condescension, but Elena didn't flinch. "And what do you know about me?" she shot back, her voice sharper than she intended. "You see a waitress and assume I'm just a nobody, but I've worked hard to be here. I'm not afraid of you or your world." Victor regarded her for a moment, his expression shifting subtly as if he were weighing her words. "Fear is not what I inspire, Elena. It's respect that I command." His voice was low, almost a growl, and it sent a shiver down her spine. He had an undeniable charisma, but beneath that charm lay an unsettling danger that warned her to tread carefully. "Respect is earned, not demanded," she replied, holding her ground. "And you're not going to intimidate me into feeling small." The fire in her belly surged, fueling her determination to confront this man who seemed to thrive on power. A slow smile appeared on his face, one that didn't quite reach his eyes, but it intrigued her nonetheless. "You're different," he said, almost as if he were making an observation rather than a compliment. "Most would cower at my words." "Maybe they do," Elena responded, her tone unwavering. "But I'm not them. I refuse to be a pawn in anyone's game, least of all yours." His eyes darkened slightly, revealing a glimpse of the predator lurking beneath the surface. "A pawn can become a queen, you know," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "But it requires more than just boldness. It demands cunning, strength, and a willingness to embrace the darkness." Elena shivered at his words, sensing the weight of what he was implying. She had always fought to carve her own destiny, but the shadows he hinted at were far from what she envisioned. Despite the fear trying to creep in, she felt an exhilarating rush of adrenaline. "I'll take my chances in the light," she asserted, refusing to be swayed by his dangerous allure. Victor studied her intently, intrigued by her resilience. "You may not realize it, but you've already stepped into the shadows, Elena. You're here now, and there's no going back." His voice was smooth, yet a chill ran through her as she considered the truth behind his words. What had she gotten herself into? Before she could respond, he straightened, casting a glance over his shoulder at a group of men who had just entered the room, their presence commanding attention. "We'll continue this conversation later," he said, the edge in his voice hinting at a sudden seriousness. "Stay close to me. It's not safe here." Elena's instincts screamed at her to resist, to walk away and reclaim her independence, but something about his tone compelled her to listen. She could feel the tension in the air shift as the men approached, their demeanor exuding an air of authority that mirrored Victor's. She was swept into a whirlwind of conversations and laughter, but her mind remained focused on the unexpected connection she had forged with the Bratva boss. As the evening progressed, she found herself drawn to Victor, despite the danger that clung to him like a second skin. She couldn't shake off the feeling that there was more to him than just the cold exterior he presented to the world. Beneath that layer of intimidation, she sensed a vulnerability that intrigued her. "Why do you keep watching me?" she asked him at one point, unable to contain her curiosity any longer. They stood slightly apart from the crowd, and the noise faded into a dull hum as she met his gaze. "Because you're a riddle wrapped in a mystery," he replied, his expression unreadable. "Most people are predictable, but you," he trailed off, as if searching for the right words. "You're an anomaly." "It's fascinating." Elena raised an eyebrow, half amused and half wary. "And what do you plan to do with that fascination? Use it against me?" "Perhaps." His lips curled into a smirk, but there was a glint in his eyes that suggested he was only half joking. "Or maybe I'll offer you a chance to see my world." "Your world," she echoed, the weight of his words sinking in. The allure of the unknown tugged at her, but she knew she had to be cautious. "What does that even mean, Victor?" "Come find out," he said, the invitation hanging heavy in the air. There was an undeniable magnetism to him, a pull that threatened to draw her into his dangerous orbit. She found herself at a crossroads, intrigued and terrified at the same time. Before she could respond, Victor leaned closer, his voice a low whisper meant only for her ears. "But remember, Elena, curiosity can be a dangerous game. Are you willing to play?" A storm of emotions swirled within her, and she felt the gravity of his words anchoring her in place. There was a fire igniting in her heart, a sense of adventure that called to her like a siren's song. Yet, she couldn't ignore the warning bells ringing in her mind. "I'll consider it," she replied, a mix of defiance and intrigue coloring her tone. "But don't think for a second that I'll be easily swayed." Victor's grin widened, a dangerous glimmer in his eyes. "I wouldn't want it any other way." As the night continued, Elena felt the weight of his gaze upon her, the electric chemistry between them crackling like a live wire. She was walking a tightrope, balancing on the edge of danger and desire, and she couldn't help but wonder where this path would ultimately lead. As the evening progressed, Elena found herself caught in a tumult of emotions, each more complex than the last. The men surrounding Victor were unmistakably part of his world, their laughter sharp and devoid of warmth. She could feel the weight of their gazes, assessing her like she was an unworthy interloper in their exclusive realm. Yet it was Victor's presence that loomed largest in her mind. The tension between them had shifted subtly, igniting a spark of curiosity amidst her instinctual wariness. "Stay close to me. It's not safe here," Victor's voice echoed in her mind as she stood beside him, trying to comprehend the uncharted territory she had ventured into. His eyes flicked to the men, and for the first time, she noticed a flicker of apprehension beneath his composed exterior. Before she could ponder the implications, the atmosphere shifted. One of the men, tall with a slicked-back hairstyle and a smile that didn't reach his eyes, approached Victor with an overly casual demeanor. "You're late, Victor. We thought you'd forgotten about us," he said, a hint of mockery lacing his tone. Elena's heart raced as Victor's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "Just handling some matters that required my attention," he replied smoothly, though she could sense the underlying tension. The other man, whose name she didn't know, leaned in closer, and Elena strained to hear their conversation as they moved slightly away from her, creating an unintended barrier. "Business is booming, but we need to ensure everything stays under control," the man said, his voice low and conspiratorial. "I've heard rumors, whispers about the police sniffing around." Victor's expression darkened, and Elena instinctively took a half-step closer, curiosity overwhelming her initial fear. "Let them come," he replied, his tone icy. "They'll find nothing. We've managed worse than a few rumors." Elena's heart dropped as she realized Victor was discussing more than just business. He was entangled in something sinister, a web of danger that pulsated just beneath the surface of his polished exterior. She barely registered the shift in conversations as they moved back toward the center of the gala. Her mind reeled with the revelation that the powerful man in front of her was more than just an enigma. He was a player in a game where stakes were life and death. "What did you just hear?" Victor's voice cut through her thoughts as he studied her with an intensity that made her pulse race. She hesitated, weighing her words, but the urgency in his gaze compelled her to speak. "That there are rumors about the police, that you're involved in something illegal." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, but it was quickly masked by a calm facade. "You shouldn't concern yourself with matters that don't involve you, Elena. This is dangerous territory." His tone held an edge that both intrigued and frightened her. "And yet, here I am," she shot back, the fire in her chest igniting once more. "I didn't come here to play it safe. If I'm going to understand your world, I need to know the truth." Victor's gaze softened for a moment, revealing a glimpse of the man beneath the ruthless exterior. "You genuinely believe you can handle it?" His voice was low, and there was an intensity in his eyes that made her heart flutter. She nodded, her resolve unwavering despite the doubt clawing at her mind. "I've faced hardships before. I won't back down now." He studied her for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable passing between them, admiration, perhaps, or concern. But the moment was shattered as the man from before, now identified as Anton, interrupted them. "Victor, we need to move. Time isn't on our side." Elena's stomach twisted as she caught a glimpse of what lay ahead. She could feel the tension radiating off Victor, a palpable energy that surged through the room. "What do you mean?" Victor's voice was sharp, pulling her focus back to him. Anton leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "We've got a deal to finalize, and I'm hearing whispers that someone's been watching us. We can't afford any mistakes right now." Elena felt a knot tighten in her stomach at the weight of his words. The gala, once a dazzling escape from her mundane life, morphed into a shadowy playground of danger. She watched Victor's face transform, the vulnerability she had glimpsed moments before now replaced with a cold, calculating demeanor. "Then let's not keep our guests waiting," Victor replied, his voice steady but laced with a simmering tension. He turned to Elena, his expression inscrutable. "You need to stay close. I won't have you caught in the crossfire." "Caught in the crossfire?" The words hung heavily in the air, their meaning settling in her mind with a chilling clarity. She had thought she could navigate this world on her own terms, but now she realized how deeply she had underestimated the complexities of Victor's life. As she moved closer to him, the weight of their unspoken connection hung heavily between them, blending urgency with an undeniable chemistry. She was drawn to him like a moth to a flame, even as she felt the heat of danger radiating from him. The thrill of the unknown mingled with a sense of foreboding, igniting a fire within her that she had never anticipated. In that moment, she understood that she was no longer just an observer, she was a participant in a world that demanded her full attention, where every decision could lead to irrevocable consequences. The stakes were high, and she was determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant embracing the darkness Victor so effortlessly commanded. But as the night unfolded, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that her involvement would change everything, both for her and for Victor. She had stepped into the shadows, and there was no turning back now. Elena's focus snapped back to the conversation, her heart pounding in sync with the escalating tension in the room. Victor's gaze was unyielding, a storm brewing beneath his calm facade. She could see the worry etched into his features, something she had never seen before. It unsettled her, yet it also ignited a flicker of curiosity. What lay beneath the surface of this powerful man? "Victor, we need to move. Time isn't on our side." Anton's voice broke through the haze of her thoughts, urgency lacing every syllable. Before she could grasp the gravity of the situation, Victor's hand gripped her wrist, his touch firm yet protective. "Stay close," he instructed, his voice low and commanding. They moved through the gala, weaving between clusters of guests unaware of the storm brewing in Victor's world. Elena's heart raced, not just from the thrill of being so near him, but from the realization that something was amiss, something dangerous lurked just beyond the glimmering facade of the evening. As they reached a secluded corner of the mansion, Victor's demeanor shifted from poised leader to a man on high alert. "What do you know about the Bratva?" he asked, his eyes piercing into hers, searching for any sign of understanding. Elena swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his question. "I know enough to stay away," she replied, her throat dry. Yet the truth was, she was already entangled in his world, a world filled with shadows and light, danger and allure. A flicker of admiration crossed Victor's face, but it was fleeting. "You should be careful," he warned, his voice turning grave. "This isn't just a game. People get hurt." "Are you saying I'm in danger?" she countered, her voice steady despite the rising panic within. "Because I'm not afraid of danger, Victor." His expression softened momentarily, revealing a glimpse of vulnerability that made her heart ache. "You don't understand what you're asking for," he murmured, almost to himself. But before she could respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the main hall. Elena's instincts kicked in, her body tensing as she turned towards the noise. Victor's grip tightened around her wrist, his eyes narrowing as he faced the source of the disturbance. A group of men, rough around the edges and clearly out of place among the gala's elegance, had entered the room. They moved with purpose, their eyes scanning the crowd like predators. Elena's breath caught in her throat as she recognized the tension that radiated off Victor. This wasn't just a casual gathering anymore, this was a confrontation waiting to happen. "Stay behind me," Victor commanded, positioning himself in front of her as if he could shield her from the chaos that threatened to unfold. Elena felt a surge of defiance. "I can handle myself," she insisted, but deep down, she felt the truth in his words. This wasn't her world, and the stakes were higher than she could comprehend. The men approached Victor, their leader stepping forward with a predatory smile. "Victor," he drawled, the name dripping with disdain. "I see you've brought a guest. How quaint." Victor's expression darkened, the transformation from charm to menace swift and palpable. "What do you want, Ivan?" he asked, his voice low but laced with menace. "Just a little chat," Ivan replied, his eyes flicking to Elena, assessing her with an unsettling curiosity. "I hear you've been making waves. It's bad for business, you know." Elena's heart raced as she took in the situation, feeling the weight of Victor's protective stance. The tension in the air was thick, charged with the possibility of violence. She could feel Victor's muscles tense beneath the tailored fabric of his suit, ready to spring into action. "Stay close," Victor whispered to her again, the urgency in his voice cutting through her thoughts. "Whatever happens, don't move." As Ivan continued to speak, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. She was trapped in a moment where the boundaries of her reality blurred with Victor's dangerous world. The sense of foreboding wrapped around her like a shroud, but beneath that fear lay an inexplicable thrill. She was in the eye of a storm, and Victor was at its center. "I'll deal with this," Victor stated, his voice calm but with an underlying tension that promised violence if necessary. "You should leave." Elena's pulse quickened. "No. I'm not leaving you," she declared, stepping forward to stand beside him, defiance radiating from her very core. The connection they had forged was stronger than fear, it was a bond that transcended this dangerous situation, and she felt a fierce need to support him. Victor looked at her, surprise flickering in his eyes, but behind that surprise, a hint of approval. The slightest hint of a smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. "You're stubborn, aren't you?" he replied, a hint of warmth breaking through the chill of the moment. "Maybe I'm just brave," she shot back, her gaze steady as she faced the looming threat together. The tension thickened, time stretching as Victor and Ivan exchanged loaded words. The atmosphere crackled with unspoken threats, and Elena realized she was witnessing more than just a power struggle. It was a glimpse into Victor's world, one filled with loyalty, danger, and a raw, unyielding strength. Suddenly, Victor lunged forward, his movements swift and decisive. Elena's breath hitched as she watched him confront Ivan, the fear that had been simmering beneath the surface now boiling over into an undeniable reality. She was no longer just a spectator, she was part of this moment, part of a world that threatened to consume her. As the confrontation escalated, Elena felt a rush of adrenaline. Victor's protective instincts were on full display, and for the first time, she understood the lengths he would go to protect those he cared about. His fierce loyalty ignited something within her, a recognition that beneath the hard exterior, there was a man capable of deep care, a man willing to fight for what he valued. Just as the situation reached its peak, Victor turned his attention back to her. His eyes were intense, filled with a mix of warning and something softer, something that tugged at her heart. "I won't let anything happen to you," he promised, his voice low and compelling. In that moment, Elena realized her feelings for Victor had deepened. She saw him not just as a mafia boss but as a man burdened by his past, a man who fought against the darkness around him. As the chaos swirled, she felt an undeniable urge to stand by his side, to face whatever came next together. "What happened tonight will change everything," she whispered, her voice barely above the noise around them. Victor nodded, an understanding passing between them. And as the storm around them raged on, Elena knew one thing for certain: she was no longer just an outsider in this dangerous world. She was part of Victor's life, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Elena's heart raced as she stood behind Victor, the air thick with tension. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. The confrontation with Ivan loomed like a storm cloud overhead. But beneath that anxiety lay a burning desire to confront Victor, to understand the man behind the fierce exterior. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the words she had to say. "Victor, we need to talk. This can't just be about keeping me safe," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. He turned slightly, his expression a mix of surprise and annoyance. "Not now, Elena. This isn't the time." His eyes flicked back to Ivan, whose predatory gaze lingered dangerously, as if he could sense the shift in their dynamic. But Elena felt a surge of courage, emboldened by the urgency of her feelings. "No, Victor. It needs to be now," she pressed, stepping out from behind him. "You can't keep me in the dark. I deserve to know what I'm getting into." The intensity of her gaze met his, unyielding and fierce. She could see the struggle on his face, the conflict between his need to protect her and the reality of the world he lived in. "You don't understand what you're asking for," he replied, his voice low but edged with frustration. "This life is dangerous, and I won't let you get hurt because of my choices." Elena took a step closer, the distance between them closing. "Then let me in. I want to understand you. I want to know why you are the way you are." The words tumbled out before she could second-guess herself. Victor's eyes narrowed, calculating, as if weighing the risk of revealing too much. "You think you want to know, but you don't." The shadows in his gaze deepened, reflecting unspeakable fears. "I've done things, Elena, things that haunt me. I've lost people. You don't know the toll this life takes." Her heart ached at his vulnerability, the glimpse into a soul so burdened. "Then tell me. I can't live in your shadow forever, waiting for you to be ready to share your secrets." It was a bold statement, but she felt an undeniable pull to him, a connection that could no longer be ignored. The tension in the air crackled as Victor studied her, the walls around him trembling. "You really want to know?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Fine. But be careful what you wish for." Before she could respond, Ivan interjected, his voice dripping with mockery. "Is this a moment of bonding? How sweet. But we're not here for a therapy session, Victor." His laughter cut through the tension, bringing the focus back to the immediate threat. "We have business to discuss." Elena felt the shift, the danger looming larger than before. Victor, she whispered, her instincts screaming for him to stay focused. What's happening? Victor turned to her, his expression hardening again. You need to trust me. No matter what you hear, stay by my side. His tone was commanding, yet there was an undercurrent of desperation in his gaze that tugged at her heart. Like I have a choice, she shot back, frustration boiling over. You think pushing me away will keep me safe? It won't. I'm already here, Victor. I'm already part of this. He looked at her, really looked, and in that moment, something shifted. The storm in his eyes began to calm, if only slightly. You don't belong here, he said, his voice softer, almost pleading. This life, it consumes everyone, and I won't let it consume you too. Elena's heart pounded, not from fear but from the realization of what his words meant. But I want to be here, Victor. I want to be with you. Her declaration hung in the air, charged with unspoken feelings and lingering moments. Ivan laughed again, this time with a cruel edge. Is that so? You think this is some fairy tale, girl? You're playing with fire. He looked to Victor, feigning concern. Are you ready to risk everything for a trinket? Elena's anger flared. I'm not a trinket, she shouted, surprising both men. I'm a person, and I deserve to be treated as such. You're not the only one with a past, Victor. You don't get to decide what I can handle. The room fell silent, all eyes on them. Victor's expression turned stormy, a mix of admiration and frustration. You have no idea what you're walking into, Elena, he said, his voice low. You think you're strong, but this world will chew you up and spit you out. You should be afraid. Maybe I should be, she replied, her voice steady, but fear won't control me. Not anymore. The resolve in her tone was new, a testament to how much she had grown since their paths had crossed. His gaze softened, and for a brief moment, the walls began to crumble. You have no idea how deeply I care about you, he admitted, his voice low, filled with emotion. It terrifies me. I can't lose you, not like I lost them. Elena's heart twisted as she saw the pain in his eyes, the ghosts of his past haunting him. Then let me in, Victor. Stop pushing me away. Trust me, like I trust you. The vulnerability in her voice was palpable, a mirror to his own. But before he could respond, Ivan interjected again, his mocking tone slicing the intimacy. What's this? A sweet little moment? How touching. But we have business to settle, Victor, and I'm not in the mood for sentimentality. Victor's demeanor shifted back to ice, his focus narrowing on Ivan. You want business? Then let's discuss it. But know this, Ivan, if you threaten her, you'll regret it. His eyes, once filled with a storm of emotions, now held a chilling resolve. Elena felt a rush of adrenaline. They were at a precipice, the tension between them palpable. What would happen next? Would Victor's past pull them apart, or would they find a way to bridge the chasm between their worlds? She knew one thing for certain, whatever happened next, it was going to change everything. Elena's heart raced as she faced Ivan, the tension electrifying the air between them. Victor stood firm beside her, a protective presence, but she sensed the storm brewing outside. The rival gang's threat hung over them like a dark cloud, and the stakes had never been higher. You think you can push me around just because you wear a suit? Ivan sneered, his eyes glinting with malice. You're nothing without your little toys, Victor. You're just a lost boy playing a man's game. Elena felt the heat of Ivan's words wash over her, fueling her determination. And you're just a coward hiding behind your threats, she shot back, surprising Victor with her boldness. His gaze flickered toward her, a mixture of admiration and concern. She could see the surprise in his eyes, he hadn't anticipated her defiance. You don't need to protect me, Victor. I can handle this, she insisted, her voice steady. Stay back, Elena, Victor warned, his tone low and fierce. But she noticed the shift in his posture, the way he leaned slightly toward her, as if seeking her support. You don't understand the danger here, he added, but she saw the flicker of respect in his eyes. I understand more than you think, she replied. I've faced challenges before, Victor. I'm not afraid of Ivan or his pathetic attempts to intimidate us. She stepped forward, placing herself between Victor and Ivan, feeling a surge of empowerment. You need to know that I'm not just a pawn in your game. Victor's eyes widened, a mix of surprise and pride. You're not a pawn, Elena. You're far more than that, he said, his voice softening. The tension between them shifted, a silent understanding sparking to life. But the moment was cut short as Ivan erupted with laughter. Look at this. The girl thinks she has a say in this world, Ivan mocked, gesturing dismissively. You're just a pretty face in a dangerous game. And trust me, pretty faces don't last long. Elena's determination only hardened. Maybe I'm not just a pretty face. Maybe I'm the one who'll outlast you, she declared, her voice ringing with conviction. Victor glanced at her, his eyes searching, as if he were seeing her for the first time. The weight of her words hung in the air, a challenge to Ivan's arrogance. Enough games, Ivan said, his expression darkening. You're both in over your heads. There's a reason I'm here. I'm offering Victor a choice, he can either join me, or he can watch you suffer the consequences. Victor's jaw tightened, and for a moment, Elena could see the internal struggle within him. He was a man torn between his fierce instincts to protect her and the harsh reality of the life he led. You think you can threaten me, Ivan? Victor's voice was a low growl, but Elena could sense the underlying current of fear for her safety. I don't think I know, Ivan replied, his confidence unwavering. You'll have to make a choice soon, Victor. The clock is ticking. Elena felt the tension in the room escalate, a palpable force that pressed against her. We can't let him dictate our lives, she said, her voice rising in urgency. Victor, we need to stand together. We can fight this, but we have to do it united. Victor turned to her fully, his expression shifting from concern to something deeper, an understanding, perhaps even admiration. You're right. We can't let him control us. As Ivan's laughter echoed around them, Victor stepped closer to Elena, their shoulders touching. We'll deal with him together, he said, his voice low and fierce. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for. Elena felt a surge of warmth at his words, the unspoken bond between them growing stronger. And you're not as invincible as you think. Together, we can outsmart him. Ivan's expression soured as he took in their unity. This is just the beginning, you two. I'll make sure you regret crossing me, he spat before turning on his heel, his gang following closely behind. The moment they were gone, Victor exhaled heavily, tension bleeding from his shoulders. I didn't want to drag you into this, Elena. You have no idea how dangerous it could become now, he said, his voice strained. Maybe I didn't before, but I do now, she replied, her heart pounding. And I'm not afraid. Not anymore. Victor's gaze softened, and for the first time, she saw the vulnerability he kept hidden behind his powerful facade. You're fearless, he said, his voice low and filled with a mix of awe and respect. I can't lose you, Elena. I can't let this life swallow you whole. I'm not going anywhere, Victor, she replied, stepping closer. I'm here because I choose to be here. And I choose you. His eyes darkened, a storm brewing beneath the surface, and she could feel the tension shifting again, this time charged with something deeper. You have no idea what you're saying, he murmured, his breath hitching slightly. But I do, Elena insisted, her heart racing. You've shown me a world where I can be strong, where I can fight alongside you. Don't push me away. Victor's expression hardened for a moment, but then the walls he built began to crack. I'm not pushing you away, I'm trying to protect you. But I'm not weak, she replied firmly. I can help. I want to help. He searched her eyes, and she felt the connection between them deepen. If we're going to face Ivan and his gang, we need a plan. I know a few things about negotiation, she said, a spark of mischief lighting her eyes. Let's use that to our advantage. Victor's lips quirked upward for a brief moment, a flicker of hope. All right then, let's do this. Together. Their fingers brushed for a fleeting moment, igniting a fire of emotions they both had kept at bay. In that instant, they were no longer just a mafia boss and a woman caught in his world, they were allies, partners, and perhaps something more. As they stepped out of the shadows together, Elena felt her heart soar. The rivalry with Ivan had only begun, but with Victor by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. Everything was on the line, but for the first time, she felt like she belonged in this dangerous game, and she was determined to play it to win. Let's show them what we're made of, she said, her voice unwavering. And in that moment, they were united, poised to confront the dangers ahead, their bond stronger than ever. Together, they would face the storm. Elena watched as Ivan's men retreated, their laughter echoing like a haunting melody in the empty space they left behind. The adrenaline coursed through her veins, a mixture of relief and lingering tension. She turned to Victor, who stood beside her, his presence a solid anchor amidst the chaos. The moment felt surreal, the world around them fading as they stood together, united against the threat that had loomed over them. Did we really just do that? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, a mixture of disbelief and exhilaration. Victor's gaze softened, a rare vulnerability breaking through his hardened exterior. You were incredible, he replied, his voice low and filled with admiration. I didn't expect you to stand up to Ivan like that. It's powerful. Elena felt warmth spread through her at his words, a flush creeping up her cheeks. I had to. I couldn't let him think he could intimidate me, or us. Victor took a step closer, his eyes searching hers. You're more than I ever realized, Elena. You're not just a pawn in this game, you're a player. The weight of his words hung between them, a promise of something deeper. Elena's heart raced, and she could feel the magnetic pull between them intensifying. What are we now? She asked, her voice trembling slightly, uncertain yet hopeful. Victor's expression shifted, the tension in his jaw relaxing as he took a breath. I don't know what this means for us in the long run. But I do know that I can't imagine my life without you in it. Elena felt a rush of emotions flood her, her heart swelling with hope. I don't want to be just a part of your world, I want to be with you. Whatever that looks like. Before she could process the implications of her words, Victor stepped even closer, their bodies almost touching. You have no idea how much I've tried to keep you away from this life, to protect you from the darkness that surrounds me, he confessed, his voice filled with raw emotion. But I can't deny how deeply I care about you. Her breath hitched at his admission, the weight of unspoken feelings finally surfacing. I care about you too, Victor. More than I thought I could. The air crackled with tension, their unspoken connection palpable. Then let's not fight it, Victor said, his voice a low murmur as he reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. Let's face whatever comes next together. Elena's heart soared, and she nodded, her resolve stronger than ever. Together. Just as the promise hung in the air, a distant siren wailed, an ominous reminder of the world outside their moment. The chaos wasn't over, but for the first time, Elena felt like she was ready to face it, not just as Victor's protector, but as his partner. Let's get out of here, Victor said, his voice firm but gentle. We need to find a safe place to talk. Elena agreed, and as they walked out of the abandoned warehouse, the weight of the world felt a little lighter. She glanced at Victor, who stole a glance at her, a flicker of something more than just desire in his eyes. The streets were quiet, the night air filled with the scent of rain. They walked side by side, the tension between them shifting from danger to something more intimate. Elena felt a thrill as their fingers brushed, igniting a spark that sent shivers down her spine. Can I ask you something? Victor said, breaking the silence. Of course, she replied, her heart racing at the prospect of his question. Do you think we can really make this work? A life together, knowing what we're up against? His gaze was steady, filled with sincerity. Elena paused, considering his words. I believe we can. It won't be easy, but if we're honest with each other and face the challenges together, we can navigate this. I'm not afraid of your world, Victor. I'm afraid of losing you. His eyes softened, and he reached for her hand, intertwining their fingers. You won't lose me. I promise to protect you, even if that means facing my own demons. The sincerity in his voice settled a warmth in her chest. And I'll protect you too. We're in this together, remember? As they reached Victor's car, he opened the door for her, the gesture a reminder of the gentleness that lay beneath his tough exterior. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted again, the intimacy of the moment wrapping around them like a warm blanket. Where to? Elena asked, her heart still racing. Anywhere but here, he replied, his voice low and filled with determination. Let's get away from the chaos for a while. I need to show you something. Curiosity piqued, she nodded, excitement bubbling within her. What is it? He smirked, a playful glimmer in his eyes. You'll see. Just trust me. As he drove through the dimly lit streets, Elena felt a sense of anticipation building. She glanced at Victor, who was focused on the road, his jaw set with determination. Despite the dangers that still lurked in the shadows, she felt a sense of safety with him. After a while, they arrived at a secluded spot overlooking the city skyline, the lights twinkling like stars against the night sky. Victor parked the car and turned to her, his expression serious yet soft. I wanted to bring you here because this is where I come to think, to escape the madness. Elena stepped out, the cool breeze brushing against her skin as she took in the breathtaking view. It's beautiful, she breathed, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. Victor joined her, standing close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. But it's even more beautiful with you here, he said, his voice low and sincere. Elena's heart fluttered at his words, and she turned to face him, their eyes locking. Victor, before we go any further, there's something I need to say, he interrupted, his expression serious. This life, this world, it's dangerous. But I want you to know that I'm all in. I want you with me, no matter the cost. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, overwhelmed by the depth of his feelings. I'm all in too, Victor. I've never felt this way about anyone. He stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. Then let's promise to face whatever comes our way, together. No more hiding, no more pretending. Elena nodded, her heart swelling with emotion. Together. In that moment, everything else faded away. The danger, the threats, they all felt distant as Victor leaned in, capturing her lips with his in a kiss that was both fierce and tender. It was a promise, a commitment to navigate the chaos of their lives hand in hand. As they pulled away, breathless and filled with newfound hope, Elena realized that this was just the beginning. With Victor by her side, she was ready to embrace the challenges ahead, knowing that their love was strong enough to withstand anything. Let's go home, Victor said, his voice low and filled with warmth. Elena smiled, her heart full. Yes, let's go home. And as they drove away from the city lights, the future stretched before them, bright and uncertain. But for the first time, she felt ready to face it all, together.